Hello and welcome to How to Get Promoted When You Hate Self-Promotion. And as I'm waiting for people to join, please let me know in the comments where you're joining me from today. I'll give it a few seconds whilst I'm waiting to see that people are online. For those of you that regularly attend my LinkedIn Lives, I haven't done one for a few months. I was looking back and I was thinking, gosh, this is the first one for this year. So I'm looking forward to it. Right, I'll get going, and do let me know in the comments which part of the world you're joining me from today. Hello from Colorado, US Colorado. Oh, good to see you, Mark. I'm glad you always enjoy my sessions, and thank you for showing up. Hi, Maxine from Reading. Good to have you here. Hello, London user. It's good to have you here. So yes, hello and welcome to How to Get Promoted When You Hate Self-Promotion. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Carol Stewart. I'm an executive career leadership coach, founder of the Bounding Solutions and author of the book Quietly Visible, Leading with Influence and Impact as an Introverted Woman. And I coach leaders to lead with confidence, influence and impact, specializing in introverted leaders, women and leaders from underrepresented groups. So got more people joining now. We've got Tonya from South Carolina, Jolene from Singapore, Angelina from the UK. It's great to have you all online. So when it comes to self-promotion, many introverted leaders, it's not something that they enjoy. And in fact, it's not just introverted leaders that don't enjoy it. Many people do. But when it comes to it with introverted leaders in particular, I will explain why it can feel uncomfortable. For many leaders, you're delivering great impact, doing exceptional work, but you struggle with that visibility and getting your work out there, raising your profile, and letting people see how well you're doing, letting people know about your successes. And research shows that extroverts get more opportunities in the workplace because their performance is more visible. And when it comes to talking about their successes and achievements, they're more likely to talk about it than introverted leaders do. Hi, Althea. Good morning from Jamaica. Hello, my cousin. Good to have you online. But when it comes to getting sort of senior positions, director level, executive level, performance alone isn't enough. I often get asked by people who, when I'm doing workshops on self-promotion or personal branding, people always ask me the question, why isn't my performance alone enough? That things which, when it comes to self-promotion, personal branding, activities that are required don't come naturally to them. And in an ideal world, everybody would be recognized for their talent, regardless of whether they make a lot of noise about it, regardless of whether they get on quietly doing a fantastic job. But unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world. And so performance alone isn't enough. And promotions are shaped by visibility, perception, strategic influence, and sponsorship. And that's may not be in. And so today it's not about bragging or playing the game or trying to be louder. It's about being quietly visible and leadership that aligns with who you are. So without feeling that you've got to put on a pretense or act in ways that don't come naturally to you. So what I'm going to be covering, I'm going to be covering why self-promotion feels so uncomfortable, positioning yourself as already operating at the next level, making your leadership impact visible without bragging, and building strategic visibility that aligns with your values. And I'll share some practical tools that you can start using immediately. And so when it comes to why self-promotion feels so uncomfortable, I mean, I mentioned that many people don't like self-promotion because it can feel quite self-centered. I mean, just the term self-promotion can feel quite self-centered. Many of us are told when we were little, you shouldn't brag, you shouldn't boast. But for people who are introverted, we have that additional, not bothered about being in the spotlight. We're not necessarily ones that want to be in the spotlight. We're quite happy to get on with things, do a fantastic job without getting a lot of attention for it. And as people have told me when I've done self-promotion workshops, a lot of the things that they think about when it comes to visibility and self-promotion don't come naturally. And so there's that. And there's also the fear of being seen as boastful or self-centered. And as people said to me, my work should speak for itself. Imposter syndrome is another reason why people don't like self-promotion, because there's that fear of being found out that you're not really that good, or that people are going to realize that, well, you're not what you say. Discomfort with being in the spotlight or being the center of attention. But self-promotion isn't about noise. It's about ensuring that decision makers have the information that they need to recognize your value. And it's about you articulating your value to those decision makers so that they see that you are the best person for the role. One of the things that I often get with my coaching clients when they first come to me for coaching, where they've maybe been unsuccessful with promotions, is that they were told that they didn't sell themselves enough in interviews. And one particular client was told that she didn't demonstrate her ability to perform at that level because she talked a lot about the we, and as in the team effort, but didn't demonstrate what she'd personally done to show that she could perform at that level. So underselling yourselves at interviews or promotion interviews can be a barrier to that success. And it's good to acknowledge the team effort, but don't undersell yourself without letting people know your abilities and what you're capable of. And so reframing self-promotion, rather than looking at it as self-promotion, what I say to my coaching clients is, and on my workshops, is you're letting other people see the value that you add and the difference that you make. So when it comes to positioning yourself as operating at the next level, think about what senior leadership teams look for. What is it that they're looking for when they're appointing senior leaders or executives or directors? And you can look at the job descriptions, you can look at competencies, look at the criteria of what's wanted, and have a look and see of you at that level. And I would also recommend as well looking at those leaders, those senior leaders that you admire because they're great at what they do, and look at it as and look at what it is about them that you admire. So it's not that you're going to copy them, it's you're going to identify the behaviors that they display that make them great. So some of the things that are being looked for when people are looking to appoint senior leaders or thinking about promoting, they're looking for strategic thinking and organizational impact. They're looking for ability to influence beyond your immediate team. And they're looking that you have that leadership presence and that confidence and evidence that you're already operating at the level that you're seeking. So think about how you can get that across in terms of what you are doing. And so some practical ways to demonstrate this is if you're talking about some of your achievements or the things that you've done, it can be difficult to get that across. So one of the things that I recommend is using the STAR framework. And if you've not heard of the STAR method or framework, it's a framework which is used when you're applying for jobs and you're wanting to demonstrate a particular competency or that you meet a particular criteria. And so when it comes to thinking about self-promotion, think about those things that you have done, your successes, your achievements, and how you can frame them within that STAR method. And STAR stands for, S is for this is a situation, T is for what the task was at hand, action is the action that you took. Framing it within that, in that framework, it helps you to be able to articulate what you did and the difference that you made. So thinking about how you can demonstrate that next level leadership and what it is that you can do to be seen at that next level. And some of the things that you can do are to take on strategic initiative roles, and like maybe joining a task force or a committee, or just positioning yourself at that level. So one of the things back in the day when I was a leader and I got my last promotion into a senior leadership role, what I did was I recognized that there was an opening coming up in a different area to where I worked. And so I wanted to, it was going to be a while before that opening came up. And I wanted to put myself in the best possible position to get it. So what I did was I made a sideward move when a position came up at the same level that I was at in that area. I applied for it, went through the interview process, and I was successful. And what I did was when I was working in that area, I took on those strategic initiative roles. I led across the area, particular groups across the area, and took the lead on particular projects in that area. So that meant that I was more visible to those decision makers. And then when the role was advertised, I'd already been in that area for a while. I'd been showing my strategic initiative. I'd been involved in task force and leading on projects in that area that had helped me to raise my visibility, that had helped me to achievements. And so when the position came up, I applied for it. I had to go through a competitive process, be interviewed, deliver a presentation. I was successful. And so I believe that my positioning myself in that way, raising my visibility, raising my profile in that way, helped me to show that I could perform at that next level. A client of mine who wanted to go to secure a finance director position recognized her strengths, and she was utilizing her strengths and was very good at developing her team and getting her team to utilize her strengths, and she was performing really, really well. But one of the things that we identified in coaching was that she was not demonstrating, utilizing her strengths at that senior level. So we developed a plan. I helped her to develop a plan which involved her taking on extra responsibilities, stretching herself a bit and stepping out of her comfort zone to take on strategic initiatives, to step in for her manager in their absence, to go to some of those more senior level meetings and board meetings, and so that she could be more visible, so she could talk about the successes and achievements that she was working on or things that she had done. So think about how you can demonstrate that next level leadership. So first of all, you need to be clear what that next level leadership looks like. What are the behaviors? What are the competencies? And what the criteria is? And then think about how you can get that experience now, whether it's taking on those strategic initiative roles on committees or task forces, or leading across functional or And when it comes to promotion, it's easy when you're already behaving, you're thinking in that way, and you're influencing like someone who is already at that level. So the next thing, making your leadership impact visible without bragging. And when you are authentic and visible, it enables you to be yourself and to show up as yourself. And so when you're showing up and you're being visible, focus on the impact that you are making and not on yourself. Because when you put the spotlight on yourself, that's where it can feel uncomfortable. So you're focusing on the impact and the difference that you've made in your work, and you're sharing outcomes, you're sharing results, you're telling people about the difference you've made. You're not saying, oh, I'm so brilliant, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. You're talking about tangible outcomes that people will be able to see in terms of the impact that you have made. And if you communicate this in a story form, it makes it feel more natural and more grounded. So like I said, it's not putting the spotlight on you, it's putting the spotlight on the impact that you've made and sharing that. And so having evidence to support it, so using data and results that speak for you, sharing lessons learned or insights or best practices that showcase your expertise without self-congratulation, letting people see that difference that you're making, the outcome that you've had, can help people to see what you're doing. And also think about how you may not be showing up already. So it could be, and this is something one of my clients did, was their company's LinkedIn page. She started commenting on posts that were done, and something that the CEO had posted on the LinkedIn page, company page, she commented on. She got noticed by the CEO and was invited to get involved in a project that the CEO was working on. That was a great way of her raising her visibility. Other things that you could do are writing articles or being a speaker on industry panel events, or writing articles for industry publications. Those are a great way of you raising your visibility and showcasing your knowledge and expertise and thought leadership. So talking about areas that you already know about. So it's letting people see that you are knowledgeable and the expertise that you have. And you're doing that in a way that educates and informs and supports others. So that doesn't come across like, or it doesn't feel self-centered, and it doesn't feel like you're bragging or boasting. And the next thing is about building strategic visibility that aligns with your values. And so it's not about being transactional or being political. It's about sharing and connecting with people, building those genuine relationships. So rather than thinking that you've got to speak to lots of different people, say, for example, when you're networking, focus on more deep and meaningful relationships and building those connections. Think about those people that you need to, or would be good for you to connect with, and be strategic in your thinking as well. So identifying people who are, and you know, that might feel a bit, oh, you're uncomfortable because you might think, oh, they're going to think that I'm just after something. But it's about building those relationships, developing your network, both in your current organization and externally, and developing those genuine relationships. Another thing to think about is having sponsors. If you're not familiar with what a sponsor is someone who is very senior, very influential, that can talk about you, that can champion you when you're not in the room. And It could be within your existing organization. It could be amongst stakeholders. One of my clients had been acting up in a role, and was when a new CEO started, whilst my client was acting up into that role, that next level up. And the rumor was that when it comes to appointing someone for the substantive role, they were going to put out for to get someone to fill the role substantively. The rumor was that my client wasn't going to be considered. And so we developed a plan on how they could raise their visibility and profile, and how they could identify sponsors. And one of the things that my client came up with was getting external sponsors from stakeholders, so senior stakeholders that worked closely with their organization. So what my client did was develop those relationships, delivered work to a good standard, so much so that they would talk about her and champion her. One day, my client was in the lift with the CEO and had never spoken to the CEO since the CEO had joined. And as she got talking to the CEO mentioned that they'd been at a meeting with stakeholder organizations who was at a senior level like then, a CEO like then, and how much they'd been talking about my client and what a difference they'd helped and how they'd made sort of meaningful contributions. That meant my client came under the radar of the CEO, helped to raise her visibility, that was a form of self-promote. Well, she didn't promote herself, it was the sponsors, the senior stakeholders that had promoted her. And when it came to applying for the substantive role, my client was successful. And another way you can build that external visibility is utilizing LinkedIn, connecting with people on LinkedIn. So if it's the case that you're maybe wanting to move to an external role, identifying those organizations that you want to work with, and identifying who works there, if you have any connections there, connecting with them, developing those relationships, maybe even meeting up with the coffees with them. One client, what they did was they'd reached an inflection point in their career and were looking to move on and get something more senior. And what they did was they hated using LinkedIn, but I encouraged them to use LinkedIn, and they started reconnecting with people that they'd met previously. And what they did was arrange to meet up for coffee with them. And one particular person that they arranged to meet for a coffee with, it turned out they were on the non-executive. They were a non-executive director at the company where my client had applied for a chief operating officer role. And that person that my client reconnected with and had the coffee at my client, and how great my client was. And my client still had to go through a competitive process, but my client was successful. But it helped that developing that, nurturing that relationship with the non-executive director, they were then able to then champion my client, and which helped to raise their visibility within the organization with the decision makers. And so when it comes to utilizing your strengths as someone who is introverted, thinking about visibility that aligns with those strengths. So as introverts, we prefer depth over breadth. So think about that when you're thinking about visibility. So I've talked about the developing and nurturing those connections and those relationships. Listening is a great way of a great part of being influential. So listening, because people like to feel that they're listened to. Making contributions that demonstrate your thought leadership, your knowledge and expertise, and just being your quiet, authentic self, and demonstrating that your authority through your knowledge, your experience, and your expertise. And before I wrap up, just a few things that you can think about that can also help with this are one of the things, and I've talked about this on my lives before, is having a success folder that tracks your achievements throughout the year. Sometimes you forget what you've done. Sometimes you forget what you've done last month, never mind 6 months ago. And so when it comes to going for promotion or applying for a role, you can forget about your achievements. So by keeping a digital folder, it could be a physical folder where you keep records of any praise, any projects that you've been successful with. Keeping a record of those means that when it comes to demonstrating your achievements, when you're going for promotion, you've got a handy record. You've got a record to hand of what you've achieved over the past year. And it also serves as a boost when you're feeling a bit demotivated, and just looking through your success folder to remind yourself of your great achievements. And think about who needs to know about you, what success you've had, what achievements you've achieved, and what difference and the impact that you've had. So think about the context, think about the contribution, and think about the impact. And before I open up for questions, I'm going to give you 3 questions to reflect on, to think about how you can prepare yourself for those promotion conversations. So think about, what outcomes have I achieved? What difference have I made? And who needs to know this? And that will help you to think about how you can be promoting yourself and letting other people know. So I'm going to open up for questions, but before I do, just to recap, I've talked about positioning yourself at the next level, about making impact visible without bragging or boasting, and about strategic visibility that's aligned with your values. And something for you to go away and reflect on is, where do you need to be more visible and why? And if you want further support with this, and you want support you to get that next promotion, then if you go to my LinkedIn profile and book an appointment, you can book an appointment with me. We can have a call and we can explore how I can support you. So any questions? We've got 1 minute left. I mean, I can stay on a bit longer. If you've got any questions, then do please share them in the comments. Any questions? And even if you join, if you watch this on the replay, if you have any questions, do type them in the comments. I will read through the comments after as well. I will come back and read the comments. And if you've got a question that you don't necessarily want to ask openly, then do send me a DM and I will answer it as well. Simfero says this is insightful. Thank you. Thank you, Angelina. Any questions? Right, well, if there's no questions, then thank you for coming online, and I hope to see you at the next LinkedIn Live. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye. I've got a question here. Can you remind us of the 3 questions? Yes, I can. Yes. So the 3 questions are: achieved? What difference have I made? And who needs to know this? Did you get that? What outcomes have I achieved? What difference have I made? And who needs to know this? All right, thank you, everybody. Okay, like I said, if you're watching it on replay, I will come back and answer questions. If you've got a question that you want to ask me that you don't want to put on the comments, then do feel free to send me a DM. Okay, bye everybody, and thank you for coming online.